What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Today we are going to be talking all about the Grasp of Devourer from our Necrotic grips, pairing that with our Strand Warlock, taking this into legendary Onslaught with ease, being able to suspend and poison literally everything that we encounter. So very good support and add suppression build. So we are going to cover this for y'all, getting you those nice level 50 clears with ease. So first off, like I said, on the exotic Necrotic grips right here, we have damaging combatants, poisons them, dealing damage over time. Defeating these poison combatants spreads that condition, provides a moderate benefit to airborne effectiveness when we have those weapons of sorrows. So we do have that actually on with both of our weapons for exotics in the Thorn as well as the Osteostriga. I do believe in my head that they both are weapons of sorrow, so it pairs with this even better. Now on top of that, for mods, I'm looking for resilience, recovery, and then discipline and strength in the middle as best as I can. Definitely want to build out your resilience and your recovery as best you can, because we are getting our abilities back via our mods right here, and the way that this build works is consuming that grenade to get the suspend. So that is why we are trying to focus on grenade energy back coming as well. So we are going to use kinetic siphon as well as harmonic, so we can get orbs of power from all of our different weapons, as well as heavy ammo finder, so we can stay consistent with that damage, as well as in some of those higher tiers, clearing out those knights or ogres inside of the rounds can be difficult, so definitely want as much heavy as possible. We are going to be using impact induction, so causing damage with our melee gives us our grenade back, double deuce in that one, as well as momentum. When we cause damage with our grenade, we get our melee back, so it's a little internal feedback loop right here for using our ability spam. Specifically, we want our grenades. We do have 3 different melees on a warlock here, so that is why we're trying to build this out with double impact. For our resistances right here, you could throw on something even like a Strand Reserve, something in that aspect, but I just threw on 3 different ones to show you that you can have a variability of resistances on. But when you get up into some of that higher levels of Onslaught, a lot of those enemies are shooting the same damage type. Fallen is a lot of arc, you got a lot of void and solar when you facing that hive, so just kind of pick and choose depending on the enemies you're going into. For me, I went with that kinetic weapon surge because of our 2 weapons that we are pairing with this, to help spread that poison and get it all over the place with suspending enemies left and right. So we got that nice 17% increase with having 2 of these on our boots. Time dilation to help us keep that up even longer with double bomber, so when we do throw down our ability with having that almost 100 recovery, we're going to get a nice chunk of our grenade back as well. Like I said, we're building it out to have that grenade so we can consume it, use our abilities, and then get everything to suspend. Now when we move on to weapons, like I said, we got 2 different choices. Osteostriga in this slot with the different perks that it has on this pairs perfectly with the toxic overload, our screaming swarm, so they track, but it's those toxic projectiles that pair with necrotic grips to spread all of that poison around, giving us the ability to suspend those enemies on those defeats as well. Our second option right here is Thorn. We get those nice Mark of the Devourer where we get the kills, give us that remnants that leave us behind with the poison that this thing adds, and absorbing those overflows our magazine, so we can have about 40 bullets inside of this Thorn, which is also pretty nasty. Plus the combination of Soul Devourer with Mark of the Devourer, we get a bunch of that poison to be spread, plus we get that ammo overflow very easily. Now when we move on to our secondary weapon as well as our heavy, I actually went with this Judgment of Kelgaroth right here for the ability of glaives to block a bunch of damage with its shield, plus demo surrounded with this. We're able to get some of our artifact procced, plus we get our grenade back with demo, so I was really liking the combo of this. Plus a couple of the maps for Onslaught have that as the overflow weapon, so it's doing a little bit more damage. As for our heavies, got 2 different options in the Strand category. Got this good old Carax's Distress with Recombination, as well as that Frenzy, or I should say Reconstruction Frenzy. We're getting the overflow essentially due to Reconstruction, then that 15% damage increase of Frenzy by just being inside of combat. With the other one that we have is Envious with Hatchling on this bad boy of Circular Logic. Just pairs well with the stasis synergy of this build, creating some extra hatchlings for us. Plus, when this thing is Envious Assassin up, we have about 145 in the magazine, so it is a wonderful weapon to have on. Now, when we move on right here to our artifact, we are going to be using the Unstoppable Hand Cannon for our Thorn if you would like, but we are suspending everybody with this build, so it kind of has that unstoppable intrinsically. We're actually going to be using Flint Striker as well as Kindling Trigger because of that glaive. We're able to proc both of these, get ourselves Radiant as well as Scorch enemies with that nice solar weapons. Plus, we can get Torch to proc as well with the Strand that we are spreading around, the poison, the suspend. We're able to do a little bit more damage on those enemies as well. Plus, we got unraveling orbs with our weapons, and as well as that horde shuffle, creating more of those threadlings by damaging those unraveling targets, which we are getting all over the place with our weapons as well as with our abilities. On top of that, last one, Dragon's Bite. When we break a combatant's shield with that Strand or Stasis, we're going to have the chance to suspend or freeze. So for us, even more suspend is going to be spread around with this build. Finally, when we move on to our abilities, aspects, and fragments, we got our Needle Storm, of course, actually pretty good at doing DPS. Not as good as like a Nova Bomb, but it is very, very close. We're going to be using our Healing Rift with Burst Glide, in my opinion. You can use really whatever you want. I just was loving this while I was going through that content. I got that Arcane Needle, like I said. One, it unravels them, so it helps to proc our class item, or our artifact, I should say, giving us that ability to have even more of those threadlings procced, and unraveling is very, very good on this build. We are getting the nice 3 melees as well. On top of that, we're using Shackle Grenade, which is super, super important because of Mindspun Invocation. This is going to help us with that suspend just in general if we're throwing it out, but we are really going to be using it because of Mindspun Invocation right here. We hold to consume, our grenade activates Weaver's Trance. Final blows while Weaver's Trance is activated creates that suspending detonation. So that is where having that up with the poison being spread from our melee, from our weapons, causes just some crazy ignitions of explosions with that suspend as well as that toxic. So it is a lovely, lovely combination at keeping literally everything at bay. Next off, we got the Wanderer, another way for us to suspend targets. We got the tangles that we throw, attach, and detonate on targets. Suspending them, destroying the tangle creates a suspending burst. So it is a wonderful little addition for even more of that suspend, plus even more of those threadlings cause the tangles to proc. So we are getting those with Hatchling as well as our artifact that we have on. So it is the perfect combination of perks here to have the unlimited suspend. On top of that, we're going to be able to create even more orbs of power because of the suspended targets. When we defeat them, are going to create those for us via Thread of the Wisdom. Thread of Warding, we're going to get that Woven Mail when we pick up all of those orbs of power, which having Woven Mail is super great for reducing that incoming damage to us. Keeps us alive, definitely in some of that later content. Very, very good for that survivability, plus the support of this build. On top of that, Thread of Generation, definitely also probably the most important fragment that we have on. Dealing damage generates grenade energy, so we can have this up consistently to be able to proc Mindspun Invocation and that Weaver's Trance to create all of that poison and suspend around. With last but not least, we are going to use Continuity to keep up that suspend, unravel, as well as sever for a longer period of time, which just allows us to have the enemies suspended even longer, making this a better support build, keeping everything at bay longer, allowing us to suspend literally everything that we possibly can, even some of those smaller tormentors, smaller ogres, stuff like that. We don't need to try and just wipe it out. We can sit there, suspend it consistently in a bunch of different ways. So this build is quite smacking in my opinion. Definitely the off meta, if you will, for a warlock. I know that solar warlock is definitely one of the most requested subclasses to use for Onslaught, but this is also a very Very good build in my opinion, especially for that support, keeping enemies at bay. If you got some other things like a tether and a well besides you, or even another titan using Strand, you can go through enemies with ease because they aren't going to come close to your ADU. So very fun build for my warlocks. Go and try this out. Before the final shape, we're going to come out with my favorite builds from this season and heading into the final shape that I think are going to be very, very viable in the future. So I appreciate all you guys for always coming back to the channel. It means a lot to me. Hopefully y'all are liking the content. Like I said, we got a lot coming out here in the future before the final shape, so don't be afraid to like and subscribe. Slap that bell if you haven't so you get those notifications. Don't miss out on any of these builds or god roll guides. But again, appreciate all of you. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.